meeting is being recorded.
Aye, we're good.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Opinion Hibs podcast. I think this is almost 4 episodes in 4 days or something like that, Charlie. It's been pretty full on, like.
It's been a busy week, evidently.
Exactly. I'm joined by Jack and Charlie tonight, except from it's a different Jack. It says Jack Banks. How are you, Jack?
Good.
Good. Nice to have you on the podcast, mate. Jack Gillies, our usual Jack. He's living up big time in Europe. He's away on a European tour in Berlin, so hopefully he's keeping himself safe and
At least
sensible.
there's one Hibby making a European tour this year, mate.
Exactly. Aye. And how are you, mate?
I'm good. Busy day at work, but busy week as well. I didn't think we'd be doing 4 podcasts this week, but I'm doing all right. How are you?
Just as busy, mate. Just as busy, even being off work and that. Like still with the amount of this has definitely become a part-time job. That's for sure. It's no longer for fun. But no. So we've got Jack on the podcast. Whenever we have someone new on the podcast, we like to ask them a wee list of questions, Jack. So if you're all right with that, we can ask you some questions just so the fans can get to know you.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Jack, who's your all-time favourite Hibs player if you had to pick one?
Martin Boyle.
Martin Boyle. Why Boyle?
I thought he was just a good player for us.
Yeah, I would agree. What's been your favourite derby memory?
Probably when Boyle scored the 2 goals a few years ago.
At Tynecastle, yeah, that was a good one. What's been your favourite Hibs kit?
Don't know what season it's for, but it's the rainbow goalie one.
Oh, aye, I've seen that kicking about. Yeah. The next question is, who do you want to be the new? Well, I'll ask you another question first. Do you think getting rid of Maloney was the right idea?
I thought it was too early, but I thought we should have kept him until the end of the season. But I thought he should have went.
Right. Okay. So you were kind of happy with it now in hindsight, but you thought he maybe deserved a bit more time. Right. Which leads me on to my next question. Who do you think the next manager should be?
I've got 2 answers for that. Either David Martindale or maybe Dick Campbell for Arbroath.
Oh, Campbell's not a bad shot. I've never heard anyone else say that, actually. I've not seen that day in the rounds. And the last question is, tell us a wee bit about your Hibs podcast. Well, where you've got a Hibs podcast yourself, Jack. So tell the listeners where we can find it and what type of things you talk about on your podcast, mate.
You can find it on Spotify, and talk about any and Hibs.
And what's the name of the podcast?
The High B Chat.
High B Chat. I like it. Good. Right. So if you didn't already know, Jack is Charlie's wee brother. Should have said that at the start. So
Aye, it's not just some random fan we found.
Aye, two Bankses on the show tonight. So guys, just first of all, we're going to get to the St Mirren preview in a wee bit. But first of all, obviously we were part of sort of Ron Gordon's media Q&A yesterday, and I just want to ask you, Charlie, there was several topics we covered. We covered recruitment, we covered the sort of the direction of the club and the 5-year plan. We covered the sacking of Maloney. We covered sort of the culture of the club, and where sort of the people that are working in and around Hibs, and sort of looking to the future in terms of not just the playing squad, but everything sort of to do with the club. What I'm assuming you both had a chance to listen back. Are you happy with Ron Gordon's answers? The answers he gave. What was your sort of thoughts on that? I'll come to you first, Charlie. What was your sort of thoughts on the whole sort of media Q&A that you have enough time to sort of gather all that information?
I think he was pretty defensive over some elements of I think the bit that surprised me most was how much emphasis he put on revenue rather than the playing squad. I think that wasn't good. Well, for me, I want to hear that Ron's got vision for a winning football team rather than our revenues went up 65% or figures like that. That doesn't as a Hibs fan, that doesn't impress me. Whereas if he said that obviously he did say that our transfer budgets went up 35%. which does excite me a little bit, because for years Hibs haven't been a spending squad. You know, our transfer signing we've made is Ulysses De La Cruz at £775,000, and for a club of Hibs' size and stature, that's too low. We should be spending, and albeit we've not had the money, we should be spending over £1 million on players going forward. And I think that's really what Ron is trying to get at. And I think, you know, he's obviously passionate about the club, and he come across that way where he just, even the idea that Ron's happy to have fans on, albeit podcasts, like it's not open to every fan, which it is what it is. Like, we were obviously lucky enough to be asked on. It shows that he has a care over the club that maybe Tom Farmer and Rob Petrie in the previous regimes haven't had, where they're happy to speak to fans, and they're happy, you know, Colin from Longbangers is drafting an email to send to Ron about the players. And that, you know, that says a lot, that Ron obviously has a care over the club. I thought it was good. I thought he was pretty defensive, but that's natural. And I think he obviously wants the best for the club, which was evident in what he said.
And Jack, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to listen to it, but did you have any big takeaways?
I agree with Charlie that he was really defensive, and he was talking about the players that we signed in the last 5-6 months, but they haven't really made an impact on the team. So I think he needs to buy more or get more.
I think he alluded to that a wee bit as well, saying that he was aware that there was holes in the squad and sort of areas that need filled. Like he talked about a striker and things like that as well.
But on that, Calvin, though, there's been gaps in that squad for a couple of years now, and they've not been filled. Like, you look at the centre backs, there's still gaps there because Rocky's not cutting the mustard. Like, Hanlon's 35, McGregor's 36. And that I've just plucked those ages out of thin air. That I think about that. Porteous is 20-ish and is probably going to leave in the summer. So we're definitely lacking numbers there. Paul McGinn's probably going to leave as well. So, and it felt like he said the same stuff that we've been hearing for years. There's holes in the squad. There are, but you need to do something about it. That's going to. Melkerson's great signing, but he's only 19. Sorry, he's 19. We need these gaps filled in the summer, and from what Ron Gordon said, I think he will come good on that. I think he is a man that he says something and he does it, and I think we'll see a big summer window. We have to see a big summer window.
I think my sort of thoughts on that yesterday was I was surprised at how open he was. I think he was defensive at some parts, but he reassured me quite a lot. And to be honest, I bought into his vision, and after I sort of seen that. You know, the big thing that got me was the fact he said that, you know, Hibs should be a team that's winning. It is a results focused business, but the fact that the current results that they weren't good enough, he wasn't trying to make a change. Like I said previously, I thought he might have been quite stubborn and tried to stick with Roland even though it wasn't working. But I think it was open and honest, and he took that on the chin. And it was funny because if you look at the club, I think actually everything about the club is pretty good except from the football, which I know if you look at that, you'll laugh because hence in the name, Hibernian Football Club. However, I think he's right when he said, you know, the development team's good. You know, they're beating the Old Firm, beating Hearts and things like that. Aberdeen compete with teams like that. You look at the social media side of things, that's been really, really good. Engagement with the fans, fan engagement, having people on our podcasts and all that. I think as well, the sort of initiatives like football for a fiver and all that, knowing the demographic, sort of the poverty areas and that around Easter Road and that, getting people to the match and that. I think a lot of that's been really good. And the sponsorship deals and that, all the sponsorship deals Greg McEwen, that's been able to get this year. I think that's been really, really good. And there has been a lot of that in recent years, even just stuff in the shop, bringing back the retro shirts and all that, all those sales. I do think all of that's been really, really good. But I just think what's missing is putting the ball in the back of the net and us going home happy with 3 points. Because, like I said, you can have all of that, and that is great. But if you're not winning, nobody's interested. Do you know what I mean? I just kind of felt it was missing the point a wee bit, and I'll let you jump in on this, Charlie. I thought it was missing the point a wee bit because I thought the way to bring it, for me, and I'm not a businessman, so I don't know, but I would say the way to build revenue would be to win matches. If you win matches, people will come.
I think on that as well, the money side of things, it was interesting when he said that when he came in, we had the budget that was closer to Motherwell than it was Hearts, which we should never, ever, Hibs should never be a team that's got less money in the bank than our city rivals. We should always have the same, if not more. So, and I think we're had we finished top 6, we'd have been a lot closer to that. But I think there was 2 things that I maybe forgot to pick up on that were really alarming when he said, and it was the first one was the whole, our squad's good enough to be top 6. And I think when you look at it, I think this is definitely why Maloney's not the manager anymore. When you look at the Ross County squad, the Motherwell squad, they've got a much worse squad than we do in their top 6. And I think that's maybe why he's pulled the plug on Maloney this early. And secondly, and I felt it was really disrespectful when he said the whole idea of we want the best people at the club. And if that means that Sue McLernan and Colin Miller and that are getting sacked, then so be it. Which is the way I took it. And it maybe not be the way Ron intended it, but I felt like it was a bit disrespectful. But Sue's given 40 years to this club. And it was like, well, that doesn't really matter. If you're not the best person for the job, you're out. You know, like, I felt like it was a wee bit disrespectful, but I can see both sides of the argument on it.
Did you hear that bit, Jack, when he said that? What was your sort of thoughts on that? Did you have any thoughts on that bit?
Not really.
Nah, I kind of thought that's interesting, Charlie, because that's one of the bits that actually excited me a wee bit. Like, I thought, do you know what? Like, fair enough. Like, obviously, it is sad that Sue and that's left, but it was just the way he phrased the question. He gave it back to, I can't remember the guy's name who asked it. Like a guy from Hibs, I can't remember his name, but the way he asked the question, it was really interesting when Gordon put it back to me. He says, well, it's dependent. He sort of, the guy from Hibs Talk sort of put extra time, put it across his
it was either Gav or Craig. I can't remember.
I think it doesn't matter anyway. But the guy put it across saying, you know, are we losing this sort of, like, we're getting rid of, like, people who are Hibs fans that work for Hibs and all that, and, like, you know, the Sue McLennan and Kenny Miller I think it was Kenny Miller that done, like, the media stuff and that. And Ron said, well, it depends what you want. I mean, do you want the guy asked, basically, sorry, I'm going on, but the guy asked, are we losing the sort of, like, Hibs fans and the sort of Hibs feeling in and about the building because, like, people who are Hibs fans and get the club are leaving? And he said, well, it sort of depends what you want. I mean, do you want, like, this lovey, feely good, like, family club, or do you want to win? I didn't think he quite said you want to win, but something along those lines. I'd have to listen back, but I was quite impressed with that, because I thought, wow, like, he's not shied away for the question, and he's very cutthroat as well.
And I think we'll see that as long as we're not going to go down, and I'm okay with being cutthroat as long as it's not the case of, right, the next manager comes in 4 months, we're sitting 7th, right, out the door. Like, I didn't want us to go around this revolving door of managers. I think we'll get the next one right, and I think Ron's willing to back them. You've seen that way. How much we spent in January. Like, we're never usually a club to spend 300 grand on a player, like, and that goes back to my earlier point of I want to see us spending more money. And I think Ron made that comment obviously about we want a Ferrari but we've got Toyota money, and obviously that gained a lot of traction on social media for all the wrong reasons. But
I like that. It was a good metaphor. I completely understood what he was saying.
I buy into that idea of we need the money to buy the players. Like, we're not going to, and Ron's not going to throw all his money at the club if we're not making the money back. Like, Ron's not in that business of losing money. I think obviously he's lost a lot of money on sacking 2 managers this season, but I think we'll see some improvement there, and I think we'll see him spend. Like, he's willing to do it. You've seen that with the screens, and you see that with the kiosks and the hospitality. Like you said yesterday, fans didn't care about that, but it's important because that brings revenue into the club. But it's mostly all positive.
One of the things that really stood out to me, and I'll come to both of you on this and get your opinion. One thing he said was that, you know, the idea sort of Hibs debt and things like that needs to go. And he also, but the thing that stood out to me was he said, you know, the word persevere, or we persevered, it doesn't really inspire him. And I thought, wow, I've actually never thought of it like that before, but he's absolutely right. Because he said, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, like persevere, like, oh, try so hard, but you never get there. And that has sort of been the motto of our club. And I do think that, that's quite inspiring, that it's obviously like that word's obviously like very sentimental to like our club and what we've been through and the team that achieved, winning the cup in 2016. But I really thought him saying, that doesn't inspire me. It was like a fresh pair of eyes saying, look, let's actually try and take this club further. And let's try and, go to new heights that we maybe don't think we can reach. I kind of got that vibe from it. What did you think when he said that, that doesn't, the word persevere or persevering doesn't inspire him? What did you think of that, Jack?
Well, I think that he was talking about like trying with the club, but like if we try, that doesn't mean anything. We need to actually succeed instead.
I agree with you there, mate. Charlie?
I think it's all fine and well saying that, mate, but like, and I agree with Ron. I think, and Calvin, you'll remember it was about this time last year that we had, whether we Twitter sort of thought about that, and it was about this time last year where, we're sitting third in the league, we're in the cup, and it's like, it's all fine and well, but history doesn't show you that we actually win anything to back up these claims that we should be winning anything. And I think Ron's alluded to that there slightly, where he's saying like, it's all fine and well. We tried hard and we come up second, but that doesn't wash with Ron Gordon. I think he wants it to be we persevered and we won another one. Like I don't think he wants us to be a club where we're winning a cup every, I don't know, it was 9 years between the CIS and the Scottish, and it was 14.
So it average about one every 10 years or something.
Like Hibs need to be a club where we're winning a trophy every 2 years. Every season would be ideal, but obviously with the money that Rangers and Celtic have, that's obviously difficult. But I think he wants us to be a club where we're finishing third or fourth consistently, we're winning cups consistently, and we're making supporters proud. Like, you go back to that day in 2016, that was the best day every Hibs fan's life. And I think Ron wants that on a regular basis. I don't think he wants it to be a once in a blue moon thing by his comments there.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. Do you have any sort of closing thoughts on that AGM? I'm sure we'll be sort of returning back to what Ron said over the next couple of weeks. I mean, this isn't sort of like a one and done review of it. We'll come back to it. But you guys got any closing thoughts on anything he said?
Jack, have you got anything?
No.
I think the one thing that I would say is, as long as he gets this next one right, I'm willing to buy in. I think if we're sitting in this, and it was you and Faye down the slope asked the sort of the question, like, what sort of are you going to do to make sure we're not in this scenario in the next 6, 8, 12 months? I think I buy into that idea of, well, we need to get this one right now, and we need to move past it. It was a failed experiment, and that's all right, as long as we get the next one right.
So just to sort of move on then, I've already touched on it a wee bit with Jack, but there's a lot of sort of managers' names getting thrown around. Charlie, who do you fancy for the job?
I've got two dream candidates and one that I think will actually happen. So, first one, Yondal Thomason, that was at Malmo. I'd love to see us go for him. It was him in the summer that was winding the Rangers fans up, saying, I think they need the money in the Champions League qualifier. So I'd love him just for the pure banter element of wind the Rangers fans up. Second one, I'd love to see us try and get someone a bit like the boy at Bodo Glimt, the Knutson boy, I think. And, there's obviously been a lot of traction on social media about him recently. I would like to see us get him, purely on the fact of, you've seen what he's done with Bodo Glimt this year on a relatively similar budget, I would imagine.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm really surprised with that one, because, I mean, that Bodo Glimt, like, what did they get to? Did they get to the quarterfinals of the Europa League?
The Conference League, aye.
Sorry, the Conference League. I'm not sure why they'd leave. I don't leave Bodo Glimt to come to Hibs. Like, I struggle to see that, especially like. I mean, I don't know much about the guy, but he seems like a great manager from what everybody's saying. So I'd definitely be willing to give it a go. But I would be very, very surprised if that did happen.
And so those would be my two dream ones. I think realistically, I'm not actually sure, to be honest. Like, I've seen the list on social media and that, like on that list, like there's nobody on that strikes me as someone that I would love to see as a Hibs manager other than Keaton Knutson. But to be honest, mate, I can actually see them go down the route of we'll get an experienced head that knows Scottish football. To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if we brought in someone like Derek McInnes or, and I'm not saying I want Derek McInnes, but it wouldn't surprise me if Hibs go for someone like that. And I don't know who that is though. Like, you've got Lennon, you've got Derek McInnes, you've got Tommy Wright, you got Martindale. It doesn't strike me as someone that I would want. Like, I don't want us to go down this. We've had him before. We'll get him again.
It's not inspiring, is it?
No, and I want us.
Exciting.
I'd like to see us get someone like the two I mentioned there, just because it's a bit exciting and it's a different market to tap into. But to be honest, mate, I'll be happy with anyone except Neil Lennon or Malky Mackay.
Really? No Lennon.
No.
Jack, you touched on that a wee bit, mate. You gave two really realistic candidates. Have you got anybody that you think would be good that's a wee bit left field, a wee bit out there? Like a dream signing?
I think Neil Lennon would be all right, since he done all right with us before.
I'm a big Lennon fan. I think the reason for it being is the guy's a winner. Like, he's very passionate in that, and I think he's everything a Hibs manager needs to be as well. Like, when he plays Hearts, and he hates Hearts just as much as us. He hates Rangers just as much as us. Like, I enjoyed his time at the club, and I think looking back now in hindsight, we backed the wrong horse back in Canberra, unfortunately. But so you say Neil Lennon? I think for me, I've been pushing the Solskjaer agenda today.
I'd take it.
I'd take it too. I mean, I know a lot of people think it's far-fetched, but I don't know if it's more far-fetched than the Bodo Glimt one, because, I mean, he's currently out of job. A lot of people are saying money would be an issue, but I mean, the guy's already a multi-millionaire. Like, does he really need? He's got a nice hefty payoff for Man United, and that. Does he need money? He might just like a challenge. Scotland's a beautiful country to live in. I mean, he won the Elite Series in the Norwegian the league twice with Molde. He won the Norwegian Cup with Molde.
Aye, but Calvin, he never
European football as well.
He never won at Easter Road though, so that would get him off to a shaky start already.
That's true. And I just think he's a good manager. I think it would be a good pedigree for us. I think let the Norwegian Revolution begin. I think he'd be a really good sort of coach to sort of bring on Melkerson. I think he's partly responsible for turning Haaland into a beast during his time at Molde. That's my horse I'm backing. I would certainly like to see Solskjaer at Easter Road. I think it would be really, really good. Do I think we'll get him? No, I don't. I'm trying to put it in the running there. I'm trying to get it out there and spread the word, but I don't know if many people are jumping on the bandwagon. I think Ronnie Dyler would be a decent shout.
Ronnie Dyler,
that would excite me. I don't know. I know he's been really successful recently in the MLS, but I don't know how he got on after he left Celtic. I believe he went back to Vålerenga in Norway after he left Celtic, and I don't know how well he done there, but I do know he's just won the MLS. But I think a lot of Celtic fans, they were pretty disappointed that he left, and they sort of felt he was maybe pushed under the bus a wee bit. I think they quite liked him and would have liked to have given him a wee bit more time. So I think that speaks measures as well. I think he was quite well liked there, and I think he'd be a decent appointment for us. Whether he'll come or not, I mean, I don't know if he'd want to swap New York for Leith. That's that in itself is a big decision. So we'll need to wait and see. But right, we'll move on then. We've got talking about all these great managers. We're going to be Sir David Gray is going to be in charge for our trip to St Mirren. Again, second time deja vu. I'll come to you first, Jack. What's your sort of predictions for the game against St Mirren?
I'm confident in us, and I think we could win. But David Gray is manager. I don't know.
What do you think David Gray could do differently? What do you think? There's any players that he could play that haven't been playing recently, or do you think he'll stick with the same sort of think it'll be quite similar to what we've seen under Maloney, or do you think Gray will put his own wee spin on things?
I think he'll stick with what we saw with Maloney because the players will be used to it.
That's a good point, yeah. And Charlie?
I think he'll switch it up a bit. I think he'll change the formation because
What do you think he'll go for?
I hope he goes two up top. And I've always liked him with two up top. And I think, see if it's Melkerson and James Scott, I'd be happy with that because you saw what James Scott was like against Hearts in the semi. Like he was just, he just ran. Like, and I know he's not the best player in the world, and I know he's not been well received by Hibs fans, but I think if we see that sort of determination from him in these next 5 games, I think he can leave with more of a positive end to his Hibs time than he's seen up until now. I think I'd like to see us go flat 4-4-2 and just see how we get on.
Yeah, I think Hibs will be. I think Gray. I don't really know how he'll play it. I was thinking he might go a wee bit defensive, but I think you're right with the 4-4-2. I don't think it'll be similar to what we've seen under Maloney. I just think that Gray will try and play it safe and he'll try not to get beat.
Yeah.
Because if we get beat, then there's a good chance that the club does go into a free fall, and it becomes incredibly harder to try and pick up results in the following weeks.
Realistically, though, I think we just need one win or one draw and we're safe.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I think there's teams there we should definitely be beating. We should now make a statement to try and go ahead and win all the games.
Yeah,
which obviously would be amazing. But I think the Livingston away and things like that will be challenging. But the only things that I've noted down here is that he's obviously missing 7 first-team players, but it's the same we'll be missing all year, like Nisbet, Doige, McGuinness. Who else is missing?
Porteous is still suspended.
Porteous is suspended. Mitchell's still not quite fully fit, even though he's back training this week. And the other 2 are just escaping me off the top of my head. But we've got...
I can't mind who else is out, actually.
Not sure, but we've got Bashiri potentially coming back in, and Doig is available again. Do you think they'll both be in the starting lineup?
Is Dre Wright back?
Nah, Dre Wright's still out. That's another one. There's one more after Dre Wright. I can't think who it is.
No, I can't mind.
Do you think Rocky and Doig will be back in the squad then?
Hope one of them's back in. You can probably guess who I want. I didn't want to see Rocky put a Hibs jersey on again, to be honest. I think, although to be fair, with Porteous out, he probably will play.
Yeah.
Unless he puts McGinn centre back, because McGinn played centre back for a lot of the season last year, and then puts Harry Clark right back. But then you've also, if he's going the football. I didn't want to see Rocky play because I think he's a bit of a bomb scare.
So are you all out on Rocky then? Is that you had enough of him?
I don't think he'll play again, which is a shame because I actually think he started well at Hibs, but I wouldn't want to see him play on Saturday.
What about you, Jack? What's your thoughts on Rocky?
I'm the complete opposite. I think we should get him on a permanent deal.
All right, okay. What's your thinking behind that then?
I think he's been a decent centre back for us, and I think he could do some good stuff if he signed on a permanent deal.
Yeah, I'm sort of a wee bit more along the thinking of Jack. I agree with Jack. I think Rocky's been a bomb scare at times, and he's been, there's a lot of things he's done that I think is just due to the lack of experience, and I think it's sort of big. He's had big boots to fill in that as well, like with Porteous and that missing out, and Hanlon as well. I think it's just taken him a wee bit of time to gel. But I didn't think he's bad. I think we've certainly had worse centre backs at the club. I think with a wee bit of time and a wee bit more sort of coaching, he could be a decent player for us next season, even if he's not a starter. I wouldn't feel too uncomfortable about.
I think he's also, to his defence, I think he's probably been chucked in a wee bit of the deep end like Melkerson, because you remember when. After he played those first 2 games, they've only said he can't play more than 2 games, and he's played every game since. So, except last weekend. But I think I just think it's too big of a club for him almost. That there's a lot of expectations with Hibs fans that if you didn't meet them, then you're sort of done for.
Yeah, No, I think I think he's decent. I would have him in there running about the squad. I don't know if he'll be there next year now that Maloney's left, because I think that was probably a Maloney signing, or he was
Aye.
encouraged by Maloney to sign. So I would be surprised if he was still there. So aye, guys, the team's going to be quite difficult to pick, but do you want to have a go at it?
Jack, you want to suggest yours?
Your starting 11, who do you play?
I don't know. I
It
could
is
have like a
difficult.
few players that I think you should play. I think you should play Dabrowski instead of Macy in goals.
Mhm.
I'm not that sure for anything else.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is quite difficult. I think I'm quite similar. I think I'd probably go I'd go Macy in goals. Christ almighty. Centre backs is going to be Hanlon and Rocky, isn't it? Probably put Doig left back. I'll probably go Harry. I'm going to go Harry Clark left mid, right right back.
Cards.
Probably Cadden. In front of him, I'd have what do we go in front of him? It is hard to pick, isn't it?
Jasper, probably. Eh?
Probably Jasper if Jasper's fit. Yeah, I don't know if he's fit though. But probably Jasper. Probably put Stevenson centre mid with I don't know. Newell will be available still. Won't he?
I think because I think he's suspended for the cup next season. Although I've not seen anywhere if that's true or not.
Aye, and I don't know. It's really difficult to pick because I've been hopeless out all year. But I think he might go. I think he might go with two up top. I think the most interesting thing will be to see whether or not James Scott starts again.
Aye.
What's your thoughts? Do you think James Scott will get the nod?
I think my team's very similar, Calvin. I think I'd go Macy, I'd go Doig left back, Hanlon and probably Rocky or McGinn, one of the two. I'd go Cadden right back, Jasper right mid, Stevenson and Newell, Harry Clark, and then I'd go Melkerson and James Scott up front. And I think that team wins on Saturday. I really do. But and I hope James Scott comes up with a goal to, like, I really do, because I think you've seen the reaction Dre Wright got when he scored. And I ken it's at Tynecastle, whatever, but he was brilliant. He got a wee bit of confidence after he scored. He was our best player in the park. I think I'd just love to see James Scott get a goal and see what happens for his confidence. I think that's what he's lacking. I think, he played relatively all right the first couple of games, and he went off the boil having COVID and another illness. And I just think if we can get a goal, then it'd be great.
I know. I'd give him a shot as well, and I think he's. I think there's a player in there. I don't know if I'd be encouraged to keep him next season because he was obviously quite poor with his attitude and that at the start with Jack Ross. So it's quite a big ask to see whether I would keep him or not. But well, that sort of brings us to the end of that. Just a very short, sharp episode.
Jack Gillis has prepared a wee video of his thoughts, and he'll preview the women's game as well. So we'll go to that.
As most of you know by now, because you've been following me on Twitter, I am in Berlin, so can't join the lads on the podcast tonight, as I'm heading up to SV Empor Berlin against TSV Rudau in the Berlin Liga, the German 6th tier, which right now is a lot more exciting than talking about Hibs. But obviously, I thought I'd give my thoughts ahead of the men's game against St Mirren and the girls' clash with Partick Thistle. So first of all, the men's game against St Mirren, obviously it's deja vu. We're back at David Gray having to take over as interim coach, and surely St Mirren have set some sort of record, because one of Eddie May's games was of course against St Mirren. That was one of his games as an interim after Neil Lennon. I think that was his first game, so I think St Mirren have set some sort of record for facing Hibs interim coaches, but of course David Gray's back in the hot seat for the game against St Mirren. It's not a one I'm overly confident for. Obviously there's been a lot of turmoil around the club, and I think Ron did well in his press conference to sort of clear all that up. For me, there's still a lot of turmoil, and that's going to feed back to the players. So it's just a game I'm not sure about. I think line-up wise, I don't think David Gray will massively change the system up. He's not got the scope to, I don't think, because of the injuries that we've got just now. So I think we'll probably see a similar team to what played Hearts in the semi-final. And I think to beat St Mirren, we just need to put our chance away. I know it sounds really, really simple, but that's what we need to do. We just need to put our chances away, and just be that little bit more clinical, have that little bit more of an edge up front. That's what I think we need to do to beat St Mirren. So quick score prediction, I'm going to say 1-1. I think St Mirren will go 1-0 up and we'll equalise. So I think it'll be a draw for David Gray's first game of potentially 5. In charge, moving on to the girls, obviously they're back through at Petershill Park to play Partick Thistle, a place that's not been a happy hunting ground for us this season. We've been, I'd say, shocked twice, especially in the Cup quarter final just a few weeks ago there. I think that was a really shocking one. So it's not an easy place to go, and I think that 5-0 defeat against Rangers will still be fresh in the minds, but I'm hoping that we can just get that bit of luck against Partick and get a result against them, because we need it. At the end of the day, it's all about building momentum and just sort of solidifying fourth and that sort of best of the rest status for me. So again, I can't see Dean really drastically change things. I think Siobhan and Cav, of course the two players that were on suspensions, will come back in, and we might see Joelle come back as well from her injury, although I don't know, heard that was maybe a bit longer term than we first thought. So it'll be interesting to see how we line up, but yeah, hopefully we can just beat Partick this time, because we've had that hoodoo against them at Petershill Park. We just can't seem to beat them there, but I think the girls will be up for it and put in a performance. So I'm going to say quick score prediction for that, 2-1 Hibs, in the spirit of the day, 2-1 Hibs. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult weekend for the High Bees whilst I'm partying it up in Berlin, so you can keep my eyes on that on Twitter.
Right, so thanks to Jack for his thoughts and all that. Even though the big man's living it up in Europe, he still had time to send in a wee video, so we appreciate that.
We just get quickly score predictions for the weekend, mate.
Right, let's do it. Right, Jack, do you want to give your score prediction first, mate?
I'm going 2-0 Hibs.
2-0 Hibs. Charlie?
I'm going 2-1 Hibs, with the goals coming from Harry Clark and James Scott.
I'm going to go 1-0 Hibs, and I'll say Melkerson.
Who Jinx getting the goal, wee man? Goals for your score prediction?
James Scott and Jasper.
Good shouts, good shouts. Right, I'm hopeless that this is the third time we're going to try and bring this thing to a close. So, no, it's been a good wee episode. It's been nice jumping on, hearing your thoughts about sort of Ron Gordon's Q&A, media Q&A with ourselves and other podcasts. And it's been nice having you on, Jack. I'm sure we'll get you back on in the future. We can hear your thoughts again. It's been nice having you on, mate. Nice chatting to you. And just quickly, Jack, just remind people the name of what's your Hibs podcast called, and where can they find it? Just remind the listeners one more time.
It's called the High Bee Chat. You can listen to it on Spotify, and you can get it on Instagram.
Perfect. Any other thoughts, guys, before we tap out?
We'll definitely be back on Monday, and Jack Gillis will be back. No special guest on Monday, Calvin. That'll be strange having just us three numpties on together, but we've got a few in the pipeline though. We've been speaking to Hibs to get a couple more in the pipeline, so they'll be coming really soon, I think. But looking forward to them.
Perfect. Until next time, on Hibs.